Carter the Power Bryant, midday without a hat.
No hat, baby, because I everything I say is no cap.
I don't know what to do with you. Because I got you saying that. I got you calling a basketball game, and the fadeaway jumper, so silky smooth. Listen. I was not expecting you saying that, so I laughed so hard. I'm like, look at so silky smooth from West Monroe, Louisiana. What's up, buddy?
I love it. Lexi's a beast. But you want to know what's crazy? True story. And I'm debating whether or not to release this clip. There was a guy from the opposing team that came and cursed me out at halftime.
What for?
I still don't know. He was going crazy.
What did he say? What did
he say? He said, just call the game. I'm like, you can't even listen to me. You're at the game. And he was, and the funny thing is he was cursing. There's kids, right? So like, I have neighborhood kids that come that live in my neighborhood, and they go to the games with me. And there's also just kids that just around there. And his son was struggling, and for me, I am of the belief that you should be very complimentary of the team that you're not calling for. Okay. That was the thing that shocked me is I'm always, when I research the other team, over complimentary of when I'm calling a game, because they're the visiting team, right? You want them to feel welcome, but at the same time, I'm cheering for, the team that's paying me to call the games. So I try and be as objective as I can. And apparently someone called him at the game, and he interpreted something I said the wrong way. And I'm debating whether or not I'm going to release a video of it.
Release it. Now you got to release it.
I have to now, I guess. But, another thing I learned is video editing takes forever. And I'm still editing all these interviews from this weekend. So I'll get to it. I'll do it just for you.
We'll talk about your interviews this weekend, maybe some things that you pulled away because you talked to a couple of incoming freshmen for LSU. I do, I do want to get that to you, with you. But Carter, I got to start off with this. It is what it is. We got to talk about it because I think more than just the Trey Holly incident, I think we got to talk about it off the field. We need to talk about it on the field. I guess. I leave this open-ended to you when you found out what you and I talked about a lot prior to it going public. Your thoughts on the Trey Holly incident?
Yeah, it didn't shock me that he's pleading his innocent, and obviously we'll see how all the details of this plays out. I'm like some people that are familiar with that area, and they had felt not so great about it from the get-go. But that's the thing, you've worked in law and law as well as anyone in sports media. You just got to let it play out, right? Hopefully it was just an unfortunate situation and they figure something out. But it just goes to show you that you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and even if you're not involved, it still can hurt your career as a player.
I don't want to go necessarily into details. Now, I do agree, and there are a lot of questions that I have with this. Okay, number one being with Trey Holly. How can you, Carter, go outside at night and look out, look outside, okay, if there are or aren't streetlights, and look into the abyss and see if you can see somebody or something in the middle of darkness. And then you're going to have to prove to me that you knew it was him, even though it's 7 eyewitnesses. Let's get to those 7 eyewitnesses on Trey Holly really quickly. Here's my biggest thing. It's a double-edged sword. Number one, if 7 eyewitnesses have the same exact story, it's a lie. That's number one. Because nobody has the same exact story in the same way how things – Carter, I've been in law for over a decade. If everybody has the same story, it's coerced. I'm telling you what I know. I would bet 99 times out of 100, and then you having 7 eyewitnesses coming forward, That doesn't happen in most murder cases ever, or attempted murder cases ever. So I'm questionable, but here's the bad thing. You ready? 7 eyewitnesses who said he did something. Okay. So it's a double-edged sword here. So I do have those questions. With you, though, I want to have the conversation on the field. Carter, there's no telling how long this case may take, and he may be suspended. I don't think LSU has the luxury whatsoever on waiting on him. They got to go get another scholarship back now. What do you say?
I agree with you. I will say that the 3 scholarship backs that they have, right? Are we on the same page here? Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson, and Kaden Durham.
Yeah. So, I mean, but they only have 2 during the spring.
Only during the spring. I agree with you. Even when they get 3, you want to have at least 4, right? 8 last year was extreme. Okay. But then again, you only have 3 right now that are available if you needed to play a game today. So I am in agreement with you, Blake. You've been on this for a while. They need to go get someone else to play RB. And I don't want to be in the position where, someone suggested, well, move Harold Perkins to running back and it's fixed. No, it's not that easy. So I think they need to go out there and get another running back if Trey is not available. But I do think all 3 of them can play, especially what I've seen with Kaden Durham. He looks bigger already.
I told you when I went up to Duncanville, like when we did the Corey Moore commitment. I mean, I had a conversation with him and he looked at me. Look, let me tell you something about Kaden Durham. Carter, I'm not worried about the 3 backs that you have at all. I'm not worried. I think Kaden Durham can come in here and be really good, but he's going to be a freshman. Okay. I think he's an alpha dog. The worry that I have is last year you played 12 regular season games. In 6 of them, you had a back injured. Now, I'm going to do something a little. I'm already working on this, but I'm going to give a little preview. You want to know how many SEC teams had one SEC running back every week? At least one running back was out or injured on every SEC team every single week of the regular season.
That's good research. Look at you.
Okay.
AYS Analytics.
AYS Analytics in this hoe. We in this beast. Okay. Now, let me just reference this. I'm through week 8. Okay, I haven't gone week 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, but I'm almost there. But even through 8 weeks, we have somebody injured here. Now, the question becomes, do you test some things out with some guys this spring? Do you look at a guy like Aaron Anderson and say, hey, man, we're gonna do a little toss with you here and see how it works? What do you think about something like that?
I'm open to it, but, Aaron's 190. That's light for
and 190 might be generous,
right? That's his LSU listed weight. So, I guess so. I think Xavier Thomas is someone that could do something like that as well. He's got the explosiveness, but he's also not the biggest guy. Mm-hmm. I will say this: one of the players I spoke to this weekend, I just said, hey. Who's the dog? Who's the alpha of this recruiting class? Who's the guy that when you see him, you're like, this guy is a mother effing dude? And he said it's Kaden Durham. And
I know. I try to tell you
that it's that's been consensus with what I'm hearing, and that's also consensus with what I've seen. Right, just watching him, he's been my number 1, number 2-ish guy in this class, and. It just adds that little bit of extra pressure. But then again, Blake, you can argue when it comes to statistics, he is the most productive LSU running back recruit that they've ever brought in, if you just look at the numbers. So, I mean, I do feel a little bit more comfortable with what I'm hearing from Kaden Durham, not only from players, but from people around the program and from my own 2 eyes.
All right. Look, I hope for Trey Holly's case, he came out and pled his innocence. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's I don't want to say issue because I want to be careful on how I say this, but I think people understand where I'm coming from. The issue I have with even him pleading his innocence, which I got to be honest with you. I believe him a little bit the way that he constructed that. I just don't think, even if he is innocent, I don't know if this case is going to be done before September the 1st. We're talking about an attempted murder charge. Are you confident? And even Carter, if he is cleared before September the 1st, is he ready against USC? Like, people think I'm crazy here. I got to be real with you. I don't know if you don't need 2 running backs.
I'm with you too, Blake. And it's just the nature of the position. You know, they get hurt, right? And all 3, well, not Kaden, but the other 2 have injury history, right? Caleb Jackson, of course, his senior year of high school, and Josh Williams has not had extensive injury history, but you know, he's been kept out and he's taken.
He was out all spring last year.
Right. And he missed the bowl game from not this year, but the year prior. So it's a scary thing, because if you get down to 2 running backs, now you're really pushing the envelope. So I do think they'll go get someone. And another thing I would say about this, Blake, I think it would be a little bit easier to go get a proven running back than people would probably think. You know, LSU plays a lot of different RBs. They always have. You know, whether it's your more modern attacks, or the 07 LSU team that had 5 different people with 35 carries or more on that team. So I do think they'll go get an RB4, and I think an RB4 would be interested in joining a really talented room, because the likelihood that you're going to get at least some carries is going to be high, and you would be getting those carries behind the best offensive line in the country. So I would be very open to coming to LSU to play RB.
Carter, you had an event this week where you talked to a lot of newcomers coming into LSU. Gabe Relaford, Debo Atkins, a lot of them. I guess, what did you take away from talking to some of these incoming freshmen?
Yeah, the first thing was what they've said about the coaches. Debo Atkins in particular, a very deep interview, an interesting bring up. He challenged himself going to Houston, and he told me his whole behind the scenes story, and it's incredible. I do like him a lot as like a sideline to sideline player. And this guy's a dog, man. This guy really picked my brain. He was asking me questions about what I think about his game and stuff like that. All 5 of those guys were great. They're very talkative. They're very interesting people. Tylen Singleton is a massive human being.
I don't know. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if he doesn't play immediately.
Well, that was his big thing. You know, he was by far of the 5, probably the quietest, the most about his business, but he does have a big personality. He just straight up told me, Carter, I'm going to start next year. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's see it. And the others, Cryer is obviously a good kid, and of the 5, he's going to have the less pressure to play, obviously, straight up. And then Relaford and Bro both see themselves as defensive ends and what they're going to do. And they're very excited. You know, Bro broke down playing for Kyle Williams, which was obviously a big honor, and winning the state championship for the first time in 30 years.
He is the most technically ready freshman-wise right now.
Yes.
From a technical standpoint, he's the best.
And, like Danny's pointed out, I like thick prospects. They've gotten bigger. You know, all of those guys have taken what they've taken from LSU's strength and conditioning staff. I know not all of them are there, but you can see considerable changes in their body, right? You could see that they're taking this very seriously. So I'm really excited to see what those 5 players are going to do. And I got to speak to their parents and all of that. But Blake, at the same time, it is fun interviewing with them. It is fun hanging out with them. I'm obviously going to release them whenever I'm done editing all of it. But you still got to go out there and get it done. All right. Everyone could crush an interview. But all 5 of them have that dog mentality, and I hope they're able to live their dreams for LSU.
Your biggest story between talking to all of them, is there one thing that stuck out to you in talking to any of these freshmen? Like, one thing that you walk away with and say, like, hey, this is the golden nugget.
Okay. this was and we called it and we talked about this briefly. The biggest takeaway was how important it was to change over this defensive staff. Okay, it's not necessarily an indictment on the prior staff, but it was time to move on. Right? They are so excited to play for the new staff, and it wasn't coming from a place of, well, they're my coaches now, I'm just going to talk glowingly about them. They really wanted someone new in there, and that was my major takeaway. Because Blake, you know how that goes. If you got the new coaches, you want to talk nice about them because you want to be good around them, whatever. No, they wanted changes, and they got those changes, and they're really excited about those changes. And we are very fortunate that they got Blake Baker, because these guys want to play for coaches that are from Louisiana. Okay.
Right.
That was something in particular. Debo was telling me he likes the fact that Corey Raymond's from Louisiana. He likes the fact that Blake Baker's from Louisiana. That mattered a lot to these guys because it was 4 of the 5 players are defensive guys. They wanted to play from people from Louisiana, and the staff became more Louisiana with their changes, and that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, technically Baker from Houston, but I mean he's an adopted. Yeah, he's an adopted Louisianian now. That's for sure. Carter, me and you last week talked a lot about Blake Baker and this defense. I want to move on the opposite side of the ball because listen, Carter, in about 2 weeks we go out to spring football. I mean it's already back. Thank in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. The question that I have for you is, what is your thought process after seeing a game with Joe Sloan as the play caller? I guess now that we're about a little bit more than a month and a half removed from the game that he called, now that you look at him and you look at this offense, Carter, I got to admit, now I do right now worry about running back from a depth perspective. A talent perspective, I do not. What do you think about Joe Sloan, Cortez Hankton in this offense now that, you're breaking them down, we're getting ready for spring camp? What do you think about them going into spring?
Yeah, I like them. Obviously, we'll see how they do over a full year because it's easy to script plays. It's easy to do all of that. But how do you change in the course of a game, and how do you change over the course of a year, right? That's where things get really tough for play callers. My major takeaway was what Chris Hilton can do to this offense, right? That he was by far, out of anyone on the offensive side of the football, the guy who helped himself out the most. Last week we talked about Kyron Lacey on here. Chris is a guy, going into next year, I don't feel a gazillion 1,000% certain he's going to be the 30 catch guy that we saw in that Wisconsin game. But if he is that guy, this LSU passing attack is going to still be very, very, very freaking good. So if you have his open the top of the defense threat on the field at all times, this is going to be a very, very top 10 national offense yet again. If not, they're going to need to find one of those guys, whether it's CJ Daniels, whether it's Davion Thomas or whatever, but it's Chris's speed, man. It changes everything for your offense. And hopefully that continues during the course of the spring, because as you know, Blake, you'll see Chris Hilton catch passes in practice. And I've had people at LSU tell me, hey, just against air, Chris looks as good as anyone. He plucks the football out of the air. He has good hands, but in the actual games, he'll drop and not make plays. So hopefully that continues throughout the spring and going into next year.
He needs the reps.
Yes,
he's a guy that I just think needs the reps, and I think, look, from Chris Hilton, and everybody knows my biasy with him. If you're going to make the argument for me that Kyron Lacey needs the reps, then you better give it to me with Chris Hilton. Okay,
yes.
Stop. So, Carter, let me ask you this: what does life look like for this offense in the running game without Jaden Daniels? Golly, I even go back to 22 and ask myself, like, when people were aggravated with Jaden Daniels, and I'm thinking to myself, and Carter, me and you spent countless times on the iPhone together and talking about, like, look, man, people just don't understand when he's running the ball for 15 yards. I don't care if he throws it, runs it. I don't care if he does hop, skip, skip. to get 15 yards. What do I give a Rudy Poo? Okay, what Jaden Daniels was, how he was gaining yards. But he was a massive part of your running game. What does LSU's future look like without him in that specific area in your mind?
Yeah, it's a major concern, right? Jaden's zone readability and just his gravity just made life so much easier on the running backs. Where we really saw that, though, was in his first season, right? LSU was tied with Texas for the highest rush yards after contact in all of college football. And that was when Jaden was not a great thrower, right?
You're talking you're talking about in 22, just to
in 2022. Okay. So Jaden was a good quarterback in 2022, but just him existing on the field in 2022 made our running back so much better. We saw the same thing in 2023, and it took us to an even higher level because safeties really had to play back because Jaden's deep ball accuracy was some of the best we've ever seen in college football history. So you'll still have that with Garrett. Obviously, Garrett's ability to throw the football deep will give you, some too high looks and give you some great numbers in the box, opportunities to run behind Will Campbell, Emory Jones, and those guys up front. You're just not going to have the Jaden run game aspect with Garrett Nussmeier. But here's the thing. Garrett isn't going to need to be an elite runner. He's just going to need to scramble every now and then, kind of like Carson Beck did this past year versus Georgia. He had a few clutch scrambles here and there. That's all Garrett really is going to need to do. If everything else holds true to form and this LSU offensive line continues to develop at the way they're moving, you could see Blake a little bit more run game involved in a traditional sense with the running backs.
All right. Can I tell you a hypothesis here?
Let's go. I love it.
Word on my hat here. I think, listen, hear me out here. I think with simplicity comes a part where I think that they could be a better overall team. Okay. Mainly due to the fact I think they're going to slow it down. I don't think that they have a choice. Okay. Especially early, because let me give an example. When Jaden would bust off a 20-yard run and then have two passes of 35, 40 yards and you get in for a touchdown and you're taking a minute off the clock, I do think if you give Blake Baker's defense, a little bit of time, you put together a 4 or 5 minute drive, I think that they're going to be better, mainly just strictly due to what you're doing on the defensive side of the football. Carter, I don't know if they don't need to go back to a little bit more of the game plan that they had in 22 from running the football. How many times, Carter, did we go back and watch 22? Mississippi State, Ole Miss. They never got out of their game plan of lining up and just running the football and punching you square in your shit. LSU in 22 would line up and 3 yards, we don't give a shit. We're going to line up and do it again. Now, it looked different because you're from a spread concept. I don't know if you don't need to get back to that. Now, I am not saying don't throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. But if you're going to run 60 plays, 65 plays, you got to have drives where, at least a drive where you line up and you tell Will Campbell, take his soul. Go full Mortal Kombat and take his godforsaken soul. That, I think, for me, in 22 was why they had so much success, because I do think that there's something to be said when you break a team's will running the football. Maybe I'm crazy. People call me crazy here. I know you're not going to agree with that, but line up and pop somebody in the freaking mouth.
Yeah. Where I would push back is if the offense is better served scoring at the rate that they were scoring at last year.
But they're not going to be that, though.
Yeah, I don't think so. But if the offense and if Garrett is a little bit more faster pace, I don't want to ruin that rhythm. But I do agree with this. All right. I do think the traditional run game handed off to your running back does need to get better. Right. So early in the season, LSU had those games versus Auburn and Ole Miss in particular, where there were drives, and even Missouri to a certain extent, where Logan Diggs was an enforcer, right? that kind of faded. They struggled running the football with running backs versus Texas A&M, right? And in some other key spots. That's going to need to get better. Whether it needs to be a little bit more creative or if it needs to be better sequenced, how that's going to work out next year is going to be key for this offense because they do have a really good group of running backs. They do have arguably the best offensive line LSU has seen. They have that potential to be the Joe Moore Award favorites going into next year. So I'm with you. Because if you do run the football, it does slow things down and it does help your defense.
I'm not even saying to throw the ball to the back out of the backfield.
Yeah, that could be a big piece, right?
No, it's going to have to be a big piece. If you're going to throw the football, look, you got to have even extensions of the running game. How many times in that Super Bowl, like go back to the Super Bowl as an example. When did San Francisco have their most dominant success, either running or throwing the football? When they're getting McCaffrey involved in the passing game. I'm not telling you to line it up every single time and hand it off. But
Right.
The biggest thing for me is, like, for an example, you're running 4 verts on the 2 guys on the inside, 2 guys on the outside. You're running 4 verts. Okay, it's 1st and 10. The play is not designed unless you have the coverage that warrants it. Garrett Nussmeier throws a check down to Caleb Jackson. He goes for 15. That is an extension of a handoff. You're just handing it off to him right there. You can do that 30 times a game. You can do that 3 times a game, and it's going to make people respect what you're doing. That's all I'm saying here. All right.
Now let's go.
Carter Bryant. Carter, the Power.
Oh, you still got a sticker.
Bryant. All right. Last question for you here. The LSU men go to Columbia and clap those Gamecock cheeks. Okay, maybe they didn't. They won by a point. The Fighting Matt McMahon's going to Columbia and pulling it out. Let's go, baby. Got Kentucky at home. And the Fighting McMahon's, have they found something here?
Yeah, well, some of it is just good close game luck, right? They had gotten so unlucky. The Georgia shot earlier this year that rattled out. The Florida game, they were right there to win it. And Blake, it's good to see them get some close game luck going in their favor. Felt that Jordan Wright layup before the end of the first half was really nice. And they were down by 10. They were just down by 10, just hung around. I missed the game. And I actually got up this morning and watched highlights from it because I was at the event this weekend. And I was really impressed with Matt McMahon's team resolve. And I'm very happy that Jordan Wright made the transfer from Vanderbilt to LSU, right? You've seen what happened with Jerry Stackhouse' team. They lost Jordan Wright, and they're not as good. LSU gets him, got a Baton Rouge native. You could see how hard he plays. The guy is just gritty. And I like below-the-rim college basketball players like him. So what a game from LSU to get it done in a hostile environment. South Carolina's kind of a basketball school now with the women's team and now their men's team. It was very nice to see.
I'm about to talk about this in the segment that I round up here, but I want your quick thought on this. Sean Elliott left Georgia State to go to South Carolina. Bro, why am I the only one? I feel like I'm the only person that's pissed off about this.
Yeah, it sucks. Like, it really, really sucks for the group of 5 guys that see that, right? Like, I am not shocked, though. Like, I have always felt that the divide between the group of 5 and the SEC Power Fives is just so unfreaking believably wide, right? Like, these assistant coaches at big Power 5 schools get paid so much, where if you're the head coach at a group of 5 school, it's crazy. And I know the story that Sean Elliott's family is more ingrained in that area.
His family was in there in December too, when you could have made this decision.
Right. So it's very strange. Very, very, very strange. But it's just how it is, man.
They canceled the spring game.
I know.
I mean, we're in February.
They got a strength coach running the program now. It stinks. It stinks. But
boy.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Let's go LSU baseball, UCA.
Power Hour LSU.
NYS to the moon. You're going live again tonight. Man, you're the man. Look at you.
What else am I going to do?